greyhounds are being given Viagra, cocaine and travel sickness tablets to help achieve the right result. These drugs are just some of the banned substances Irish greyhounds have tested positive for in the last 2 years. But a leading international veterinary surgeon says significant drug abuse is going undetected due to inadequate testing. Separately, animal welfare groups are calling for greater traceability measures to tackle greyhound abuse. Our reporter Barry Lenihan is here with more. Barry, will you take us through the types of banned substances that are to be found in the greyhound industry?
Yeah, so dogs who test positive for doping show traces of broadly 3 different types of drugs, and these could be classified as stoppers, starters and steroids.
OK, we'll take them in turn. What's a stopper?
A stopper, Mary, is to essentially make the dog run slower. So this might be to inflate its price in the next race or to allow it to compete in an easier contest. An example of a stopper would be chlorpromazine. This is a drug commonly used to treat travel sickness and also to treat the symptoms of schizophrenia.
What about a starter?
A starter makes the dog run faster and helps it win that race. Caffeine, a common example. Now, last month, a County Kildare trainer was fined €2,000 after her dog, Knocknaseed Kate, tested positive at Harold's Cross, not only for caffeine, but also the Class A drug cocaine. Cocaine, a short-acting, very potent stimulant, and affects greyhounds as it would humans. In the United Kingdom, where 80% of the greyhounds who run are Irish and 5,000 to 6,000 Irish greyhounds are thought to be exported every year, trainers have also been found guilty of administering greyhounds with cocaine. At one disciplinary hearing, a trainer offered an explanation that the dog consumed the cocaine in a puddle of water. This explanation was rejected.
Now, steroids would be more familiar to us, but take us through what happens.
Yeah, Stanozolol is thought to be the most common steroid in the greyhound industry, Mary. It's an anabolic steroid banned in Ireland and benefits a greyhound's strength, stamina, physical appearance, but can have serious side effects. You may remember Stanozolol. The Canadian sprinter Ben Johnson tested positive for it after winning the 100 metres in world record time at the Olympics in Seoul in 1988. Irish greyhounds have tested positive for Stanozolol in races in the UK, but not here at home. The Irish Greyhound Board says the National Greyhound Laboratory is accredited to test for both water and oil-based forms of Stanozolol.
What else would be used?
Well, last year, an Irish dog in the UK, Fairyfield What, tested positive for sildenafil, or as it's more commonly known, Viagra, the drug used to treat male erectile dysfunction. The greyhound's trainer said the dog had already consumed the Viagra when he bought him outside a restaurant in Cashel in County Tipperary on his way to Sheffield. The disciplinary hearing into the matter heard how there's widespread anecdotal evidence of Irish trainers using Viagra to treat greyhounds for cramp.
So these are some of the substances being used, Barry. What do the figures tell us?
The figures would suggest doping isn't all that prevalent. The Irish Greyhound Board, it's the semi-state agency regulating the industry, says just 1% of greyhound samples were positive for doping last year. That's 58 samples out of 5,331. So far this year, the figure is almost the exact same, but the IGB says just 2 in 1,000 positive findings relate to alleged doping. But all the pharmacology experts, pharmacists I've spoken to, the vets, those in the industry, they say these figures should be treated with a large degree of scepticism.
And why so?
Several reports have identified inefficiencies in Ireland's anti-doping laws and the capacity of the National Greyhound Laboratory to detect some of the more common banned substances. The most recent of these, the Morris report, published in the summer, commissioned by the Irish Greyhound Board itself, and carried out by the leading international veterinary surgeon, Professor Tim Morris. It highlights significant deficiencies in Irish anti-doping and medication control policies policies. Professor Tim Morris claims there's a dearth of available expertise in anti-doping and medication control and a lack of a clear and public strategy. It found the National Greyhound Laboratory doesn't have the facilities to detect important medications and doping agents at the levels required for effective anti-doping and medication control. And it says the laboratory limits of detection for Stanozolol, which I told you about a few moments ago, aren't low enough to detect substance abuse. The IGB says that this laboratory has 3 full-time and 2 part-time employees at a cost of €400,000 a year, but it also uses the service of other accredited laboratories in its anti-doping regime. The IGB, it's worth pointing out, has also responded to previous critical reports, such as the Indicon report in 2014, by introducing measures such as undertaking out-of-competition testing at kennels, prosecutions under the Welfare of Greyhound Act 2011, and stricter conditions on trainers' licences.
Okay, the IGB is the Irish Greyhound Board. But what about the British Greyhound Board? What do they say about Irish greyhounds?
Well, Professor Tim Morris in this report claims the British Greyhound Board has a high degree of mistrust in its Irish counterpart, its board and its processes. The British Greyhound Board's disciplinary committee has also warned UK trainers and owners about buying Irish greyhounds, saying they should exercise due diligence in assessing the drug status of greyhounds they purchase from Ireland.
What about the issue of sanctions?
Well, this is something the Irish Greyhound Owners and Breeders Association were in Leinster House today speaking to TDs about the issue of sanctions for doping and other measures as well. And their vice chairman is Tony Welch.
Stiffer penalties, first of all. Now you can be caught with Stanozolol, cocaine, EPO, whatever you like, and you get a slap on the wrist and a mediocre fine, which is ridiculous.
What sort of penalty would you like?
They should increase the fines, and it'd say anyone that's caught for a second time should be banned. And I mean a proper ban, not where the kennel, the licence can be transferred into the son's name or the daughter's name or whatever. The kennel should be shut down for the duration of the ban. And something like that, make an example. It's not something that the board don't know about. It's something that is widely known by everybody. And if they have to make an example of someone, make that example, and you might make the rest of the people think twice.
Tony Welch there talking to you, Barry. What about this issue of greyhound welfare?
Animal welfare groups claim the sanctions for those who break the law on greyhound welfare aren't strong enough. For instance, in 2013, a man was fined €800 after 6 greyhounds were found shot dead in a quarry. He received no formal sanction from the greyhound industry. Welfare groups also have grave concerns about the export of dogs to places such as Spain, Argentina and China. As I mentioned yesterday, a Cork-based trainer earlier this year tried to export 24 greyhounds to the Chinese city of Macau. At the greyhound track there, an estimated 30 dogs are killed every month. Now, the Irish Greyhound Board has consistently said emphatically how it doesn't support the export of greyhounds to destinations where the standard of care falls below that of the Welfare of Greyhounds Act 2011.
All right, move on to this question of traceability. Can these dogs not be tracked?
Well, the Greyhound Rescue Association of Ireland is calling for greater traceability. It claims as many as 10,000 dogs are unaccounted for. Nobody knows where they are. It wants greater traceability to ensure dogs who are perhaps too slow, retired, injured, who don't make it to the track, maybe they're no longer wanted by their trainer or owner, to ensure those greyhounds are guaranteed a safe home. They also encourage people to take greyhounds as pets. And Una Jansen, she adopted 2 former greyhounds as pets, and she's been telling me their stories.
On my lap at the moment, I have Ailish, who's a 10-year-old greyhound. She had her 10th birthday last week. So we've had Ailish for just coming up to 5 years now. We got her in at this time of year, in I think it was 2011. Ailish was surrendered to the pound, as far as we know, down in the Midlands. And she came in an absolutely dreadful state. Drastically underweight, she was emaciated, she had almost no fur whatsoever, she had mange, fleas, lice, worms, you name it, and numerous injuries, scars and scrapes all over her body from, we don't know what the history was there, but somebody really didn't take care of her, and it looks like there was a lot of cruelty involved as well.
I see the tattoo on the ear. She was in the Greyhound stud book, but she never made the track.
Ailish never raced, because greyhounds in Ireland are registered with these tattoos. We can check if they have ever run a race in a track, and we can see that she never actually did race. But she was registered, and she was registered to a trainer in Ireland. But for whatever reason, she was either sold on or abandoned, and she made her way into the hands of somebody who clearly wasn't able to look after her. One more then. Good girl. Daltine was our first greyhound. Daltine we don't believe that she ever experienced any cruelty because she's a very happy dog, very well adjusted. But she was found in 2009 in that very bitterly cold winter wandering around outside, and it looked like she'd been wandering for some time. So she now weighs 25 kilograms, so she's a small greyhound. But at the time that she came into rescue, she weighed 15 kilos, so 10 kilos less than what she was now. She was absolutely emaciated, again, bald, hardly any fur. She had mange, lice, various open wounds, and the worst of all was she had a broken leg that had never received veterinary attention. So at some point, either maybe when she was training for the track, or if she was hunting or being used for coursing, she broke her leg, and nobody took her to a vet. So what happened was the two bones healed up next to each other rather than together. So she now has a leg that is 2 inches shorter than the rest of her legs. Luckily, she's been extremely lucky. She hasn't got arthritis. She has never really suffered with it. She runs on 3 legs, which we think is really cute. But of course, that should never have been allowed to happen to a dog. If a dog is injured, they should be taken to the vet and get adequate veterinary care. Somebody put her out on the street instead of taking care of her, which is awful.
And again, she was traced back to a greyhound trainer, but never made the track.
She has an extremely famous father, so she would have probably somebody invested quite a lot of money in breeding her, but for whatever reason they decided that she wasn't suitable for racing, so for that reason she never raced.
Uni Jansen ending that report by Barry Lenihan, and Barry will be continuing his reporting on the greyhound industry on this programme tomorrow.